You know, there are times where talking about politics can sound like you're giving someone directions. Left, far right, radical left, center right. Maybe that's why it's more like twister instructions, maybe. Left, center, blue, far right, red. Either way, when we say right or left in a political context, most tend to know what and who you're talking about. Democrats, well, they lean to the left, this left. Republicans range toward the right. But why? Who decided which side is which? Where do we get these directional affiliations? Joe Paris gets into the middle of it.
Call it teams, call it tribalism, call it politics. There are defined factions across American politics, and it trickles all the way down to the smallest units of government. The directional lexicon of the left versus the right. Well, it's right at the center of it all. But how did directions get so ingrained into politics?
It goes way back. My understanding is that it goes back to French Revolutionary times.
Dr. Charlie Hunt is a politics expert at Boise State University. He takes us back to the late 1700s. Napoleon Bonaparte was the big name in politics.
You had supporters of the revolution seated on the left side of the chamber, and you had supporters of the monarchy and folks who did not want to have a revolution on the right side of the chamber, and seated in different areas into their separate silos.
So when did those terms, left and right, hop the pond and enter American politics?
It's certainly been in American politics for at least the last 100 years, this use of saying someone's on the left or someone's on the right. Of course, where we tend to hear it used the most, and this is not new, is as a pejorative.
Dictionary definition of pejorative, having negative connotations. So left and right, they're not really loving labels in most cases. But the meaning and connection to Democrats and Republicans, it's a moving historical target.
Even in the last 50 to 100 years, it was not always clear, for example, which party was the left party, the progressive party, the party more eager for change or for bigger government. Not all of those sort of labels were associated with the left or the right at any given time. This sort of new evolution of what it means to be on the left and on the right is relatively new.
These days, Republicans are commonly referred to as the right, Democrats the left. A major change from the early days of America.
Abraham Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt were both Republicans. Certainly Roosevelt was a progressive. He called himself a progressive. Whereas you get Franklin Roosevelt, his relation, 30 years later becoming president, a progressive himself, but he was a Democrat.
Unlike decades past, the current left and right party lines are a hard break, making definitions or characterizations on left versus right. It's more polarizing than ever.
There are books to be written about, and that have been written about, how the two parties are coming to resemble two sports teams, right down to the colors and the mascots. And that becomes easier to do when on the left-right spectrum you are farther away from each other, because it makes you feel different from each other in a way that makes you really want to beat the other side, really want to triumph over them.
Simple explanation there. Dr. Hunt says the division continues to get splintered, especially during an election year. But let us remind you, there was a time when the wedge between the left and the right wasn't so wide, when members of the legislative branch could actually come together in the middle to make productive policy. This Congress, the current one, the 188th Congress, is on track to be the least productive in decades. For example, the House voted on bills, about 749 of them. 749 times they voted on bills last year. Only 27 of those went on to become law, which would be the fewest number since the Great Depression.